Hi, welcome to People First by All Voices. I am the head of the generation over here, Jeffrey Fermin, and I am joined by the illustrious T. Tara. I called it. I knew I was going to flub it up. I'll mess up my name on purpose now.
Whatever.
No, T. Tara Turk-Haynes. I want to toss it over to you, Tara. I want you to properly introduce yourself.
I am Titara Turk-Haynes, and I am the founder and consultant for Equity Activations. We're a company that helps other companies and organizations embed equity into their day-to-day people operations so that they can have retention and strong business health. And that means talent acquisition, employee engagement, internal comms. You name it, we do it just to make sure these companies stay around.
Amazing. I might sneak in a couple of questions around talent acquisition because it's been a controversial topic as of late, but we'll probably push that a little bit toward the end. I actually want to talk to you about what the state of the world right now feels like. There's something happening almost daily, a really rough news story, and it affects different pockets of a workplace. When we first spoke, we had mentioned, the LA riots. I myself, that was very pressing for me being a Hispanic American, and I was very stressed out about it, but still went to work, still did my thing. With all that said,
Yeah.
what should leaders be doing when things are a little uncertain?
I think that one of the things that leaders need to understand is that silence is complicit, right? And so sometimes we think as leaders, if you don't talk about it, if we just say, oh, we'll just keep going as if everything is great here at work, it absolutely does the opposite effect of what you want to do. I think leaders need to understand that the key component, the most underrated aspect of being a leader is being vulnerable. And I think there are so many leaders out there who can relate to the anxiety that we're all feeling, that can relate to the stress and all of that. You're not giving in to doom and gloom if you voice that at work. If you tell your people, like, listen, today was a really rough day. I don't know if any of you are impacted by headlines, either directly or even indirectly, because, we make assumptions based off of appearance. You never know who someone is married to, who their best friends are, what their blended families look like. So, it's not just about like one particular community. It could be any kind of community, but giving voice to the fact that the world is kind of really spicy for a lot of people and that it could be very dangerous for a lot of people. Hold space for it. Allow people to say, like, listen, if today is really tough for you, if there are no really important meetings, maybe we can table those until later on in the week when we can kind of get ourselves together. Just build a collective. Companies are not families, they're communities, and communities come together and we support one another and we figure out ways to be able to help people feel supported in challenging times. And I think the workplace is no different from that.
Yeah, I remember when we initially spoke, you had mentioned one of the first big tragedies or large tragedies that affected a lot of workplaces, 9/11, and how you rolled out an internal communication strategy and you were there to support employees. Was just curious, like, how did you tackle something that drastic?
Well, I was at work in 9/11. I was an executive assistant then, so I didn't necessarily have an internal comms plan then. I think that was the first major tragedy that I experienced in the workplace. And for me, I think it was really important to learn that leaders are human beings and how we respond in crisis is really it can be all over the place. The strongest leader can fold, right? My husband talks about this a lot because he was in facilities at night during 9/11, and he's like, the strongest person in our whole office literally was crying in a corner. And then the people who seem like they are not the strongest person, they're, go collectively into action. But I think we shouldn't be waiting for these moments, right, to understand how we can put a process together to build out resilience. Can we proactively say, like, when something is happening, here's what we'll do? And I did roll this plan out in my last in-house role when I was overseeing DEI and talent acquisition at Leaf Group. Specifically, we rolled out a plan for our leaders and our companies so that we could say, if this thing happens, here's who the company needs to hear from immediately. Is it going to be just manager level? Does our CEO need to get involved? But collectively, along with our internal comms and our HR team and our facilities team, we came and put a process together so that we weren't caught off guard and our employees always felt supported.
And There's certain as I was talking to our VP of marketing here, Emily. We were discussing like how do we manage nowadays, like, or how should we go about it? There's a weekly, I guess, issue going on in the United States, and I'm being very broad just to make sure that I'm not polarizing or dividing anything. But it almost feels like there's something that happens every week.
Mhm.
Do you kind of just like stay away and say like, all right, work is going to be our outlet where we can just come together, address it a little bit lightly, and then like get to work, or do you kind of say like, hey, let's talk about it once a week? Like, I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, how should managers be speaking to employees? Should there be a more formal weekly kind of deal, or something a little bit more
Yeah, I
intern?
think one thing I learned, overseeing DEI is that there's always going to be something, right? And it was actually ruining my own health trying to respond to every situation that was happening at the start of 2020 for all of our communities that, I feel like every community was impacted at the start of 2020. It wasn't just Black Americans, it was women with Roe v. Wade, it was, anti-Asian hate, it was anti-Semitism, it was, everyone, all of us since 2020. What I realized is that we can't really respond absolutely to everything. There is no way that you're going to be able to do that and be authentic and b just maintain your own health. I think if you ground your communications and your outreach to your employees in your mission and values, and you're repeatedly saying like, listen, this is a place where we care about everybody, and there's always going to be something that happens in the world that will impact one of our communities, if not several at a given time. Here's how you can reach out when you need that help. Here's how your manager is available for you. Here's the resources we have from a benefits perspective, right? Here's our ERGs that can come together, right? And kind of create if there needs to be a town hall. But I think if you root your communication and your care in it being always available, not event specific all the time, but always available. There are going to be times when it might be connected to the business strategy that you have, where if the tariffs, for example, do impact your employee population, you might have to be very specific then. But in general, we should have this layer of care for our communities at work no matter what. So I think it's really responsible to be proactive about it.
Yeah, in my notes, I actually had like 2020 listed as like one of these pivotal years where like a lot of things just kind of went awry, and it affected almost every community. So we could almost have a whole separate podcast about like workplaces in 2020 and how far we've come. But geez, it was crazy times.
It is, and I think that one of the things that the people who are resistant to these kind of conversations don't realize, that just because you don't want them to impact the workplace, like people who say politics does have a place at work, well, people's lives are political. So as long as that happens, and as long as we are human beings, complex human beings coming to work, we're going to have complex problems, and work is the place that allows us, if we're trying to really have innovation, collaboration, push the business forward, what do we need to fix from a people strategy in order for those people to be able to show up at their best selves?
And I feel like you've done a great job addressing everything from a management standpoint, how to do that. We talked about the 9/11 situation. You were an executive assistant. Given your experience, given everything that you've just learned throughout the years, what would you say for employees? Like, how do you manage these tough times? And what techniques or tips would you have for them to manage any kind of uncertainty?
I really think community is really important. If you can start an ERG that's around any kind of the things that really matter to you in the workplace. It doesn't even have to always be a formal ERG, but employees coming together to support one another on topics or issues that really matter to them, so that they could then be collectively collaborating at work. So you can have somebody at work that you can say, like, this thing that happened last week is really wild. One example is we at Leaf Group, we had a parents ERG during 2020, and they collectively came together when there was a there were supply issues when it came to, like, their children, like diapers. Like, they came together, they supported one another, they did drop-offs to each other. They literally were just trying to figure out a way to continuously support. And I think it's invaluable to find those communities where you can. My dog just found a friend.
If he or she wants to join on in, feel free to bring them on there.
Her friend is on the sidewalk. I don't know where she thinks she's trying to get attention.
If funny enough, I guess our pets are synced. My cat just sprinted out to go get her dog food. So they decided to be chaotic at the just the right time.
Yeah.
I love it. And by the way, we're all pet advocates here at All Voices.
Yeah, great. And
Um,
one last thing I do want to add before she interrupted me so lovely, I will say, in addition to the ERG parts, I think it's really important for employees to figure out, do they have the kind of people department that they can go to in these challenging times. I know sometimes HR gets a really bad rep, but there are really strong HR teams that are out there that really want to make a difference in employees' lives, and you should use the resources that you have right at your company so that they can, you know, really feed you and give you exactly what you need, and not be shy about it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I had a talk with Dani Herrera. She is a
Yes,
DEI consultant. She's
we're friends.
fantastic. Yeah, no,
Yeah, we're good friends.
she's fantastic. She actually schooled me up a little bit on what ERGs are.
Yeah,
Even though I've been in HR tech for Lord knows how many years, I'm still learning. I'm just a theorist, right? I am not a practitioner, and so oftentimes I forget my role now as being an employee, and I have to like access some of these things.
yeah,
For the audience, if we get any employees out there that might not be familiar,
yeah.
do you mind, dare I say, dumb it down for someone that might not know? Because I got schooled up on it recently.
Yeah, an employee resource group is usually a collective of employees who are centered around, you know, a shared value or cultural or historical aspect of themselves. They range from LGBTQ to, you know, first generation corporate to immigrant to women at work to, I mean, it could be across the board, but there are so many aspects of ourselves that we kind of tend to forget and also could be really intersectional. And I think that when we talk about companies being communities, you do need this collective of groups who are specifically highlighting the experience, you know, that they have from these different aspects that are really important. They're so invaluable in companies. Sometimes they're formalized, sometimes they're informal. When they're formalized, they work really great when it's really supported by the company. But you don't need to be formally, you know, you know, collaboration with each other or being in a collective. You could just, it could be very informal as long as you're supporting one another and figuring out ways to do that so that you can really, you know, get the experience you need to have at work, because work isn't going anywhere.
And just to tie all these things together now, right?
Yeah,
You think of these ERGs,
yeah,
right? Whenever you have these events, they serve as almost great communities for you to discuss them. And I hate to throw out like employee engagement and job satisfaction, but I have to give in our audience, like it does improve these things, right? It does improve the culture and the ability to kind of address certain things that might be bothering you in the everyday at work, outside of work, and to the point you made, give you that sense of community.
yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, as long as you're not putting all the responsibility when you're for a company in these formal ERGs of educating everybody at work, right? But you're really giving people a space to be visible, for a space for people to, you know, share their experience, because all of our lived experiences are very different. When I oversaw DEI, we had our ERGs do everything from our observance months. I had them actually sometimes be the ones who are, you know, being the host of these events. Like, you want, you know, it's not about me, it's about them really sort of hosting, sharing their experience, you know, really kind of connecting so that the whole company can see all these different people, and like how our company is made up of all these different people and their experience is really important.
All right. Do have some questions around the state of work.
Yeah, so talk
Obviously, all
about it.
these advancements of in AI, specifically in talent acquisition. Actually, our VP of marketing here just went viral for her Business Insider post, or she got featured on Business Insider for discussing what's it called? These AI like interview bots that do
Yeah.
the interviews for you. I want to hear every single opinion possible from you, from where the state of talent acquisition is, the market, all the things. Like, what are some of the problems, and do we really, are we over optimizing, over engineering some of these issues?
I think we actually, I think we are. I think we're going down a rabbit hole That's going to be pretty challenging to get out of. I think we've got to recognize a couple of things. One, this is one of the worst markets. We're almost near a recession in terms of unemployment, people losing their jobs. I think that talent acquisition, HR people are also losing their jobs as well. Like companies are not in this moment where they want to spend reserve cash because they don't know how the economy is going to work out. So we're turning to tools, I think, to make a process more efficient. And I think that process is becoming less efficient. You have companies that are incurring a lot of catfishing for candidates, which I've definitely seen. I would love to see applicant tracking systems kind of addressing that in a way where we're really doing things like checking VPNs or something else that's not necessarily like, let's throw an AI bot at it. Listen, I use AI very mindfully because I'm also a climate change person that's really kind of aware of how much it costs us to use these tools. I don't think that it's going to replace everyone, but I do think we are over AIing everything. I think the problems that we have within talent acquisition and when it comes to candidate trust, candidate engagement, and really getting quality candidates for roles that we have open reflect the biases that the recruiters and the people had way prior to AI being inundated in the market right now. So I do feel like we should probably focus more on how can we really address those issues, because I think AI and technology in general just exasperates the problems that we were already having.
Yeah. And we're seeing a lot of these queries come into all like
Mm-hmm.
it's very unique. We're staying in our lane. We're very much an employee relations platform. We handle different types of HR cases. But we are having practitioners message us. I want to say weekly, saying, "Hey, we're having a lot of problems hiring. Like, do you know how AI can do this? Like, what can AI do to help us out?" With this, I'm like, it's not the end all be all here. Like, we need to come up with more. Yeah,
Exactly.
we
And
need
that's the
human
problem.
solutions.
You need to actually hire talent acquisition professionals to help you build out something that really will work. But you can't circumvent the person when you're trying to hire people.
Exactly. Agree 100% there. Audience is T. Tara Turk-Haynes. She's outstanding. We're going to put her LinkedIn information in the YouTube video, and we'll definitely do our best to promote you, give you all the love. Where else can we find you online?
My website is equityactivations.com, and sometimes you'll hear me talking about the storytelling at work on TikTok at Titara Haynes. Yeah.
Tar Haynes. I'll
Yep.
give you a follow there. Oh, one last question. I felt like we were too corporate, too formal. I have to ask. I believe that reading is resistance. I love reading. I'm probably 6, 7 books in this summer, only because one of them is very lengthy. I
Yeah.
see a bookshelf back there. What would you recommend for one book for people leaders out there that they should read? And let's get a little bit more granular. Let's make it fiction because I feel like we read too much nonfiction.
For fiction, ooh, you really got me with the fiction one. For leaders and fiction. Um, I mean, this whole section here is all Toni Morrison, so if you really kind of want to do that, that's amazing as well. But I tend to love to read Harlem Renaissance, so maybe A Quicksand in Passing by Nella Larson. It's really interesting about um, how post Reconstruction 1920s, a lot of black people who could pass for white did because it made a better life. And without judgment, you kind of understand, why people would like to escape, the life that they endured under slavery.
A little pitch for myself since I heard you say Harlem. Uh,
Yes.
give James Baldwin a look. Yeah, you know.
Oh, 100%. 100%. James Baldwin is steady on the rotation. I like to highlight the women too because sometimes James Baldwin, and he did as well, right? So we're going to, talk about James Baldwin. Maybe give Nikki Giovanni a little look because their conversation is actually on YouTube about Black women and Black men and their relationships to each other and how sometimes can be challenging, but it's a great conversation to watch as well on YouTube.
Wonderful. I just took a note of that. I'm probably going to do it right now too.
Great.
Thank you so much again for your time. And yeah, we look forward to posting this, and hopefully this one does numbers because you are outstanding.
This was such a great conversation. I so appreciate you having me, and with the collective roster of people you've already had. So thank you again for all the work that you're doing.
Have a good one now.
You too.